off the beaten path because we were talking about Europe. We were talking about the Young Turks. We have a video this week on the Young Turks. You were once a viewer of the Young Turks. I don't want to misrepresent you. Okay.
I was indeed. Many moons ago, I used to enjoy their content because it wasn't crazy and it was left wing, and I thought, wow, this is rare. You know, someone on the left who isn't crazy. And I mean, go back and watch some of their stuff from about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It's pretty reasonable. And
I disagree.
Of course,
I think you've changed. You know what? Well, here's why. Because they would attack me back then and not have me on to defend myself.
In Michigan, of course, there was a lot of angry folks over what happened with the Republican legislature pushing through a bill that the Republican governor signed on so-called right-to-work laws. Of course, these are in reality laws that allow freeloaders at work, if the union negotiates wages for you, including health care and pension, etc. The old way, you had to pay dues because they actually negotiated on your behalf, whether you were in the union or not. Now they're saying you don't have to pay dues. Of course, it's a way of creating freeloaders, setting workers against one another, and lowering the amount of money that the unions are getting, which, by the way, also has a political benefit of making sure that they don't donate as much to the Democratic Party. So, but the thing that the workers actually care about is, hey, this could affect their wages. And as we've shown you yesterday, wages, health care, and pensions are all lower in right-to-work states. So Michigan is very concerned, the workers there, that they're going to lose all those things. They're going to certainly lose a certain percentage of them if history is to be believed. So they're very angry about what's happening, and it happened in the middle of the night. And in terms of the lame duck session, the Republicans' Governor Snyder said, oh, I'm not going to do it. It would be too divisive. And then he said, I'm going to do it anyway because the Republicans lost 5 seats in the last election in Michigan, and we're going to go ahead and ram this through while we're still in charge. Now, again, yesterday on the program, we showed you that they had been plotting this since 2007. The former head of the Michigan GOP said so as much on tape. They said the minute we have the governor and the legislature in place, we will push through our agenda, which we had been planning for all these years on. So now, in the middle of that anger that was brewing, Americans for Prosperity went and set up a tent in the middle of a 12,000-person union protest. Now, they got every right to do that. It's America, and they should not be bothered. But unsurprisingly, some people were mad because Americans for Prosperity are the people that are funding the organization that is taking away what they view to be their rights, their wages, etc. Right? So some of the people cut down the tent. Now, they shouldn't have done that because there were people inside the tent. That's unacceptable because you don't know what's going to happen to those folks. And then Steven Crowder was another guy who was going around and getting in the face of the union workers. He's a Fox contributor, self-styled comedian. You know how funny conservative comedians are. And provoking fights is always hilarious, especially with people who are worried about being able to feed their family. Now, having said that, they punched him. They never should have done that. They should be arrested. The guy who did that, somebody was talking about getting a gun. That's a threat. He should be arrested. Totally unacceptable, and helps Fox News tremendously by feeding into their message of, you see that? Union thugs. So in fact, Steven Crowder goes on Fox and Friends, and he's reveling in it. First, they're going to ask him if he's okay.
I guess the obvious question is, are you okay, and how are you feeling?
Well, you know, I'm under-rested, overworked, overtrained, and still tough enough to take this punk's best punch, so I can't complain. Oh, you poor Fox News contributor, you're overworked and overtrained, and he's got that preppy thing going on. You know, I think Anna or somebody else said in the morning meeting as we were looking at, is there any young contributor to Fox that doesn't look like he was the leader of his frat house? So, and he's like, I had to take this punk. But look, he got punched, so he's got a right to, fire back here on the air. They go further.
Hey, Stephen, didn't that remind you of all those violent Tea Party protests you went to? Oh, yeah.
Yes, it did.
There weren't any ever. What were you doing that so provoked the left that they beat you up?
Well, you know what, it didn't remind me of a Tea Party. It reminded me of the scene from The Dark Knight Rises. I expected Bane to come out and say, Lansing is yours, do as you please. I've never seen an angry mob filled with vitriolic hatred quite like these people.
Oh, no, you didn't. You didn't just do a Bane impression. Okay, wait a minute, not on my watch. Okay, it would have gone more like this. Lansing, this is the moment of your liberation.
Steven Crowder, this is the moment of your reckoning. All right, fun for everybody. Look, again, he got punched, but what's fascinating is like they're like, "Oh man, are you all right?" And look at how much he's enjoying this. He's laughing it out. He's like, "Ha ha, yeah, I'll tell you, man." Da, da, da. So he's all right, dog. He's all right. But that doesn't excuse getting punched. It's just understand that nobody got seriously hurt, thank God. Now, he takes it one step further.
You did not return the punches, and you said the reason was you thought it could get worse if you did. Why?
No, I don't think it could get worse. I want to be very clear here because I don't want to exaggerate. If you see in that video, I clinch the guy, and you can't hear it there. I say, okay, I'm going to let go, I'm going to let go, I'm going to let go. Don't hit me. And he sucker punches me once I let go. And the second I grabbed him, just to mitigate damage, you can see people swarming in. I truly believe that if I would have defended myself, they would have torn me apart. They would have killed me where I stood.
Oh, come on, dude. Okay, now you went too far. Okay, they would have killed me where I stood. You know, Bane wasn't actually in the crowd, right? Like the guy taking a swing at you, that was ridiculous, right? But nobody was going to kill you. Look, if you were afraid at that moment, hey, look, I'm surrounded by people that are not on my side here, and a guy just punched me. Perfectly legitimate. Nothing wrong with that. I hear you, man. I got attacked by an angry Cuban crowd once, so I know what that's about, okay? And then, of course, Fox News said that I was a communist agitator. But at the time, I was a Republican. Awesome when they make things up. Anyway, so you're right to be concerned, but killing you, it didn't look like that was going to happen. But he's got a unique solution as to how they can settle this.
There's been $7,000 raised, just to give you an idea as to how angry the American people are about this, the angry working class, to find and ID this man. Tony, we know who you are. Come forward. I'm offering him an ultimatum right now. You come forward, I will press charges. You will go to jail. Or, since you like to sucker punch people, I will allow you to face me in the People's Octagon in a legal, sanctioned mixed martial arts bout where we can settle it man to man, one-on-one, and all of this money that's been raised to find you, I will match it. If you beat me, give it to the union of your choice. It's your choice, jail or face me like a man. Send your answer on Twitter at @AskCrowder.
The People's Octagon! Here comes Crowderhead! What a weird thing to do. I mean, again, he calls himself a comedian, so it's okay. I guess he's goofing around. But he says, I will allow you to come forward so you can get arrested. Or I will beat your ass in the octagon. Okay. Now, by the way, let me skip ahead here to a Fox News guy. In fact, from Fox and Friends, Brian Kilmeade. The last time that he thought he could wrestle around, and he did it with Kurt Angle. Let's see how that turned out.
Okay.
All right.
All right, now you go down.
Oh, you mean parterre?
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I mean. Sorry. I meant parterre, okay?
This is
now,
awful.
if you can escape from me, I think you're on the right route. But there's a chance you're not going to move. But don't get discouraged if you can't.
Okay.
All right? All right, try to escape. Go.
Now? Really?
Ready?
This is going down now.
That looks fun. They're having fun, man. Oh, you got him, man.
You gotta give him a couple cross faces.
You guys okay?
I love that. You guys okay? You need me to join in? Go threesome, it'll be awesome. Is that the kind of wrestling Crowder wants to do with this union guy? I don't know. I might want to avoid that People's Octagon in that case. Finally, if you thought this stuff hadn't gotten goofy enough yet, well, it turns out the guy who took a swing at him, they are pursuing him. How are they pursuing him? It's very serious.
All right, Steve, we hear that. Do you have an idea if they are pursuing this man? Have they let you know? Obviously, he's caught on videotape. People know who he is. Is anyone pursuing him?
People are pursuing him, again, all over Twitter. If you follow me live on Twitter at @AskCrowder, you'll see.
What about the police?
I don't know about the police.
It's awesome. I don't know about the cops, the guy that I think should be arrested, but we are pursuing him all over Twitter. Whoa, I didn't know it was that serious. Okay, they could have killed him on the spot. That's why they're coming for him on Twitter. I'm glad to see that nobody got hurt, man. And I'm glad that it's turned into a goof fest now. Steven Crowder is a self-styled comedian. I'm amused by that every time. He's also a Fox News contributor. He went down to Michigan where there were the union protests earlier in the week, and he got assaulted. A guy had punched him in the face, and I said that was, of course, unacceptable, and the guy should be arrested. Now, authorities are saying that Crowder is not being very helpful in that regard. We'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to show you the video that Crowder had shown about the man assaulting him. Let's watch that.
You just assaulted me.
So in that edited video, it appears that the man is standing calm in the beginning and then sucker punches Crowder out of nowhere. Turns out when you look at the full tape, not exactly how it went down. What's interesting is that the New York Times noticed that in an earlier airing during the Sean Hannity program, they showed the full tape, the unedited tape. Now look at what happens to that guy who threw the punch in the part they cut out of the tape. Well, now you see, wait a minute, it wasn't that simple. Now, we don't know if Crowder pushed him. I really don't know that. It's totally unclear from the tape. But there's no question somebody pushed him. That it's not like out of nowhere. He was like, oh, I'll go ahead and sucker punch Crowder, as Crowder explained. If you weren't, it wasn't clear enough to you. Here, watch that portion of the tape again. The man obviously gets knocked down to the ground. That's why he's upset, because he just got assaulted, and he attacks, presumably, the guy he thinks did it, whether he's right or wrong. So that's a totally different story. Weird. Fox News would show edited tape that doesn't tell you the whole story. Well, it's a good thing that they accidentally ran the bigger tape earlier in Sean Hannity's program. So they're totally busted on that. I suspect that Crowder will apologize for editing the tape, right? Now, look, he still can press charges. The guy still assaulted him, and we don't know if Crowder pushed him. And it was not the right thing to do either way. But that's a totally different story than the one they tried to tell you about all day yesterday on Fox News Channel. Gee, I wonder why we think that they're not trustworthy and they're not a real news channel. Now, there are other witnesses as well. Ken Spitzley, who was a State Agricultural Department employee, said about Crowder, quote, he was just after everybody. There was no question he was there to just start a fight and start some kind of trouble. And again, you don't know. Ken says that he's not a rabid pro-union guy, but he was obviously sympathetic to those guys. And without the tape, you might say, hey, he's making that up, and Crowder might not have been looking for the fight, and it's not right to hit him any way you slice it. Spitzley also says Crowder wasn't going to go home until he got punched. Now, look, that's just one witness. If we didn't have the tape, you might say, I don't know. With the tape, you see at least that they told a totally misleading story about what happened that day. They're bad guys, man. Look, if I had that tape, there's no way I would run it without showing you the full context. I would say, hey, listen, that guy, if I was the one who got punched, that guy shouldn't have punched me. I didn't push him down, etc. if I didn't, right? But there's no way I'd edit out that he got pushed down. I'd say, look, come on, and whoever pushed him down, they should be in trouble, etc., right? To go out there and pretend all day long in so many different appearances that he said it, Crowder said it on Fox News, that he got sucker punched and that, the guy did it out of nowhere and it's because they're union thugs. They're bad guys, man. They lie to you on purpose and they do it all the time. It's their standard operating procedure. Now, if Crowder was in the right, you'd think that he'd press charges, right? Well, the Michigan State Police agree with you. The Inspector Gene Adamczyk says there's video footage of him being assaulted. We don't know who the suspect is, but we can do a several-month investigation and find the suspect. But if Mr. Crowder is not going to prosecute, we've not gained anything. We've wasted resources. You know why he's saying that? Because they're telling Crowder, hey, press charges. We want to go forward with the case. Why aren't you pressing charges? Well, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure we have an answer to that. Perhaps the tape is part of the answer. He says, and he says that he watched Crowder on Fox News. The inspector watched him challenge whoever punched him to an MMA-style fight in the People's Octagon. Well, the inspector says you can't leverage the law for personal gain. Either you're the victim or you're not. So if he's the victim of an assault and he wants to file a complaint, we will definitely investigate it. Now remember, when asked about that, Crowder on TV said, well, we're pursuing the guy on Twitter. Oh, okay, well, that ought to settle it then. One more quote from the investigator as he's frustrated, obviously. He says, quote, if somebody broke into your house, wouldn't you immediately report it to the police? If someone assaulted you or your family member, wouldn't you report it immediately to the police? Well, why wouldn't you? Unless there's a personal agenda there. Now, that sounds just about right. I don't know what Crowder is hiding besides what we just saw, but it doesn't look good for him. And you have to question why he wouldn't be charging the union thugs that attacked him for no reason. And by the way, if you're doing an investigation, you should also definitely do an investigation on the man who committed the initial assault, whoever it was that pushed that protester down. Fox. They do it all the time, man.
I remember they did a debate. Google Cenk Lee Doren. With Lee Doren, he was How the World Works. This was back in like 09, 010. And it was just, back then it was still like, he didn't scream it, but he had a moderator, and it was just them two versus Lee.
I'm Tracy Freeland, back with Reuters in Times Square. And now we're going to hear from the insurgents, the rising YouTube voices. Cenk Uygur, who hosts the Young Turks on YouTube, and Lee Doren, who hosts How the World Works, also on YouTube. Cenk approaches these issues from the left, Lee from the right. So I'm just going to start with a question to each of you. What was the most surprising thing you heard in that discussion with Laura and Glenn? You can go first, Lee.
I was very surprised on two things, actually. The one, there was actually quite a bit of agreement between both of them on a lot of the issues, but where the clear disagreement was and where
And what was the agreement that was interesting?
It seemed like they both agreed, and I was surprised by this, that the current administration is trashing business and attacking them quite often.
I don't
Do you think that Laura, did Laura say that? I didn't hear that from Laura. Did you hear that from Laura, Cenk?
No, and she was worried that they weren't, I mean, I know where you're coming from. Yeah, she said, I think at one point that they were worried that it's not, that they're not being business friendly enough, which just drives me crazy.
That's what I was referring to.
Right, so I get what you're referring to, but no, Laura didn't say, she wasn't saying that Obama's trashing the business interests, so a little distinction there.
But sorry, we interrupted you.
That's no problem. The only issue that I was really surprised by was the fact that Ms. Tyson was arguing for a second stimulus, and that just seems totally absurd to...
She's written about it in the New York Times, come on!
But it is absurd that in order to bring us out of this recession, we need to blow another $800 billion on money-losing projects. I mean, this is not the way to bring us out of this recession whatsoever. The reason why businesses are not investing, the reason why they're not hiring more people is because they're scared. They have no idea what politicians in Washington are going to do. They're treating the economy like a little kid's chemistry set. And
okay, hold those two thoughts, and I guess it's clear that you're not a disciple of Keynes. I want to hear from Cenk what were the most surprising things from the conversation.
Well, I agreed with about half of what Glenn Hubbard said, so I guess I'm surprised by that already. I think he's dead on about the fact that we have underlying structural problems in the economy, manufacturing being one of them, and that you just don't fix them with short-term fixes like, oh, let's, spend more, let's give, more stimulus to housing, let's print more money at the Fed. So that was refreshing to hear. And actually, I was more on Glenn's side than Laura's side on Fed action. I think the Fed printing it, QE2, possibly printing another $1 trillion, I think it's a disastrous idea. She said that, she doesn't think it's going to lead to inflation. And a lot of progressive economists aren't worried about inflation.
Laura, on balance, was in favor of more monetary action.
Right, I am not. I'm not at all, right? A lot of progressive economists, including Paul Krugman, say that we don't have to worry about inflation. I disagree. I think if you print $2.5 trillion between QE1 and QE2, yeah, you're going to have problems with inflation. We risk being Argentina.
Quantitative easing, thumbs up, thumbs down.
I'm in agreement with Cenk here, which is surprising on the monetary policy. And I believe the monetary policy of keeping rates so low is what triggered this boom and bust, essentially, that allowed people to mail invest in the housing bubble, and then it ended up creating a crash. I know Cenk thinks that a lot of this contributed to tax cuts, which I totally disagree, but I'm totally in agreement on the monetary issue.
Now, I want to get you two guys on this question of a second stimulus. Lee has already started on why this is a crazy idea. I want Cenk to respond to that.
Yeah, I'm split on the stimulus. I'm not a progressive economist, right? And I know that Paul Krugman thinks as an example of many economists who agree with him.
Strongly in favor.
Yes, thought the original stimulus should have been much larger. There should be a second gigantic stimulus. I'm worried about how the money's spent too, okay? And so now I know, I was pleasantly surprised that the CBO came in and said that it created, the first stimulus did, about 1.7 to 3.3 million jobs. So that was positive. Obviously, we did some of the spending right. I'm worried about tax cuts. I think because I'm worried about a balanced budget. Right? So the spending, the infrastructure, if you spend it on green energy, et cetera, some of it will be inefficient, no question about that, but some of it clearly creates jobs, and almost all economists agree that you need to stimulate the economy in some way, right?
Okay, but here, Cenk, I want to be clear on what your view is, because Laura's view, and really the view of the progressive economist, is sure, it's great if stimulus money can actually create something of lasting value, but at the end of the day, that's not what matters. What really matters is just that you stimulate demand somehow, and you have this, the classic economic notion of the helicopter dropping money, that actually would be a good thing. You buy that?
No, I'm 50-50 on that. I mean, I get the value of it. For example, they say if you get food stamps have the best multiplier effect, right? So if you give a dollar in food stamps, it creates about $1.81, I believe, in economic effect, because that helps people down the road, the grocery store clerk, the person who produced the
And the argument
food.
here is greatest marginal propensity to spend, right? A person who has food stamps is going to use them because they're poor.
Right. Within a month, according to economists, 97% of food stamps get used. So I get that argument of dropping the money and it gives you a stimulus. But I agree with Glenn Hubbard that the real problem is underlying, and I actually, everybody's like obsessed with shovel-ready projects, right? But which projects are waiting around for $1 billion to go?
New Jersey Tunnel?
Well, right, now
Glenn
there are
says he has a Columbia campus.
Right, now there are some, but just to finish the thought there, no, I would rather do long-term investment. Okay, let's fix our economy. Let's get the infrastructure going so that it's great in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I'm not as worried about, oh my God, let's panic. Let's throw money at this and let's throw money at that because it's shovel-ready.
In reality, there's no such thing as a shovel-ready project. If you take any project, whether
Come
it's
on,
a
New
bridge,
Jersey Tunnel. That's a project that's not only shovel-ready, it's started.
any type of tunnel, any type of bridge, any type of road is going to require environmental impact
No, but New
studies.
Jersey Tunnel, answer that. That's already started, and it stopped because New Jersey thinks it doesn't have enough money.
Right, but in reality, there's no such thing because
But this is one that's actually shovel-ready.
And don't get me wrong, I agree with you. I mean, that's a shovel-ready project. It's infrastructure. Great. I would spend it on that.
I think the federal government should step in and say to the governor of New Jersey,
if it makes sense.
Gentlemen,
I mean, they
money.
should obviously do a cost-benefit analysis, but if it makes sense and they think they just don't have the money, but it would work, yeah, absolutely.
Lee, this is one undisputably shovel-ready project. Should the Fed step in?
Absolutely not. What it's
Absolutely
doing,
not.
Yes, what it does is it takes money out of the private sector where businesses that are generating profits and goods and services.
So governments shouldn't build roads?
Government should build roads, but the idea that we should stimulate the economy by taking money out of the private sector during a recession and then spending it on
They shouldn't build roads during recessions?
They can build roads in general. I have no problem with that. But the idea that this itself, in an infrastructure project, is what's going to stimulate the economy is unfounded by reality. Because what you deal with quite often, and maybe this is an exception to the rule, but what you deal in general is you deal with litigation costs, you deal with environmental impact studies that make almost all infrastructure projects not shovel ready. So the idea that might be in theory,
but we already have you on this shovel-ready issue, because you've said even something that's shovel-ready, you don't think the federal government should be supporting.
Correct, that is true. So it's two separate points. One is that it doesn't work in practice.
See, Lee, that's where I think you're entirely wrong. Look, all the government is
you guys are a little more feisty here than Laura and Glenn. I like this.
So it is a collection of all of us deciding how do we spend our money together, right? So we should spend it on police because that makes sense. We should spend it on fire department, national defense.
Although some fire departments now are being privatized,
I know,
right?
which is, as you saw recently, a disaster, right? Where they won't.
I'd like to respond as collective argument.
Okay, all right. So, and one of the things that we collectively spend money on is infrastructure. So, and that helps business. It helps the private sector. If you don't have roads that lead to Walmart, Walmart isn't going to sell anything. Perfect example is Ron Johnson in Wisconsin running against Russ Feingold. He says, "Oh, I'm against all that kind of government subsidies." And what happened? He got a government subsidy to build a railway to his factory, because that helps the private sector, right? So, and if you build something that comes into Manhattan, a tunnel that comes into Manhattan, you will, increase trade, business, et cetera. It helps the private sector. It's an efficient way to spend our resources.
Let's let Lee respond. So the core point that Cenk is making here is surely collectively we come together and agree to spend some things.
The free market is an example of us individually deciding.
Okay, no, we get the free market, but what should government do? Should there be government at all?
Yes, the government should do what one of the things that Cenk mentioned, building roads, police, firemen, courts, etc. But what Cenk also talked about.
So roads is infrastructure.
Yes, but I'm not arguing that it is what we can do to stimulate the economy during a recession. What Cenk's arguing are individuals benefiting from a particular project, but what we need to look at is the economy as a whole and how we coordinate resources within the economy, and only the free market through the price system is actually able to do that. When the government takes money out of the private sector that people...
But that's called, governments always have to take money out of the private sector. Where else do they get their financing?
Well, absolutely. They do that to finance the legitimate means of government, but the notion that we need to then have an enormous amount of stimulus in order to get us out of the recession, that's unfounded.
So you're not against infrastructure spending per se just right now?
I'm not against infrastructure spending per se, but my argument is that in order, the claim that in order to stimulate the economy as a whole, we need to do more infrastructure spending is unfounded.
Okay, I want to move on to taxes now. So Lee has already foreshadowed his point of view. Cenk, I want to hear from you.
Now,
Bush tax cuts, should they be repealed?
Absolutely.
For everybody or only over 250,000?
I'd go much farther than Obama. The Bush tax
Even
cuts...
the poor old long-suffering middle class should have higher taxes?
Well, it depends on how you frame it, right? So after Bush cut taxes, it was a disaster. We had a horrible economic crash, legendary, historic economic crash.
Caused by the Bush tax cuts?
Certainly, definitely, partly caused by the tax cuts. Of course, there's in any economic crash a number of factors, and I can get into all of them, right? But tax cuts are an enormous contributing factor to that. And so the idea that we should continue those disastrous policies, I'm not on board for at all. And look, so people ask me, are you a progressive? Somebody just asked me in the live blog, are you a moderate, or what are you, right? I'm a fiscal conservative. I believe in balancing the budget, okay? And you can't balance the budget if you blow a $4 trillion hole in it by extending the Bush tax cuts, which didn't work. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, Lee, Cenk is fiscal conservative. Surely you are too. Isn't he right? You have to raise taxes?
No, absolutely not. The Congressional Budget Office stated that if the budget was capped at $3.5 trillion, which is enormous, and we just capped it at that, we would balance the budget by 2016 with keeping tax cuts as they are. Now, I know Cenk has argued that the tax cuts increase speculation, and he cites the 1929 bubble and also the recent crash that we had. The problem is that there are other examples in history, like 1920, where the tax rates were 70%, and we also had a crash. And what the government did in 1920, which no one talks about, is the government stepped out of the way, the government reduced spending, and that's why we don't hear of the Great Depression of the 1920s, because the government stepped back and did nothing, and there's not much to write about.
Why not raise taxes on people making over $250,000? Surely that would help balance the budget, and can't they afford it?
It doesn't, because it doesn't just affect them. It affects the economy as a whole.
How? You think someone making over $250,000, if they have to pay higher taxes, will just withdraw from the labor force in peak?
No, absolutely not. But they won't do that. It won't affect them. But what they can do is they can invest in smaller projects for smaller entrepreneurs that want to expand their business, and they can move.
So if they pay higher taxes, they won't invest in startups anymore?
They won't invest as much, certainly. If the government tells them that they are going to not have as much disposable income, then they're not going to have that disposable income to then invest in other projects. Now, I know Cenk's concerned that people are going to speculate with that money, and he believes that leads to the crash, but that's not founded.
I think Cenk is not so much worried about financial speculation right now. You're probably more worried just about
I'm always
fiscal.
worried about financial speculation, but look, let me address that in a couple of different ways. The multiplier effect that we talked about earlier, how much does the money circulate, is the worst for tax cuts for the top 2%. It is a 0.29. For every dollar we spend, we only get 29 cents back.
Rich people have more money to save.
Exactly. They do savings, which is good in a lot of ways. I'm not saying that there's no value in it, but it just doesn't help the economy immediately.
Buy more Gucci bags.
Or in the long run, in my opinion. So it's a bad way to stimulate the economy. And then second of all, Lee, look, I'm a small business owner, right? And so if you say
business,
the Young Turks, we make
this is your business. Here we are contributing to it.
Right,
fantastic,
exactly.
We're stimulating the economy.
No, but it's true. Like I employ 10 people. We've got over $1 million in revenue. Luckily this year, we made some profit. Okay, and so what happens with that profit in a small business? Partners can either take it out or keep it in the business. If your tax rate is low, as a partner, you have an incentive to take it out for personal income, right? Then I can spend it on a yacht. Okay, we're not that rich. Whatever it might be, right? Or I can save it. But if the tax rate is high, and we deal with this, right? Then I got to keep it in my business. I want to reinvest it in my business to grow it because I don't want to pay the taxes. It's not that I want to pay taxes, it's that I don't want to pay taxes.
Here's the problem.
You see my point?
That's a very good point, Lee.
You addressed this in your recent Huffington Post article, and the problem with the example that you brought up is you're not addressing other people that want to start up their business. If you want to be a partner in a business, you're doing it for a reason to make a profit. You're not creating a business for the sake of just investing back in your business. You might be an example of someone who's a partner in a business and then going to invest back in the company short term. But why create a business in the first place if you know that you're going to get hit really hard with a high tax rate? That's the concern.
See, I don't believe that either. Again, I'm a small business owner. My dad is a small business owner. I know a lot of people who are, look, there's never been a real business owner who thought, I don't want to make money because the government might tax it. No, we always want to make money, no matter what the tax rate is.
You want to make money, but
so you don't think that there's a level at which taxes become a disincentive to economic activity? Surely there is some level at which people are going to be less active.
So here's the thing about that, right? So logically, I think it makes all the sense in the world that you have to have a balance. It's not whether you raise taxes, not whether you cut taxes. It's that what level of taxes makes sense, right? So when you say to me like a 90% tax rate, I think that's mental. I agree with everybody.
Did I say that? Did I suggest a 90% tax rate, please? Okay, I want to move on to another issue which Glenn and Laura addressed, and which is, all of us are talking about a lot right now. Is this administration anti-business?
Mm-hmm.
Lee.
I think it is in the sense that everything they're doing is unpredictable. For one of the examples of them being anti-business.
So it's not that they're anti-business, it's just that they're not predictable?
Well, there's 2 points. With the Chrysler bankruptcy, for example, one of the things that happened is the credited bondholders were basically wiped out in favor of the unsecured creditors. When people invest in...
They weren't totally wiped out, but they didn't get as good a deal as they felt
right,
they ought
and when
to have
people
done.
enter into contracts ahead of time knowing they're going to get less of a return in favor of more security, and then the government steps in later and says, we're going to change all the rules because we don't really like how your contracts are written, that creates an environment of uncertainty that means, what are they going to do next time? How are we going to invest? How are we going to predict for the future? And then later on, they demonize those same businesses for holding on to their money, for not investing, for not employing new people.
Now, let me tell you how it's actually working. Okay, so right now, the companies are buying their own stocks, right?
And can I just stop you here just quickly on the Chrysler point, because I think that probably was a low point in the administration's relationship with business. You did have the president himself using his bully pulpit to directly, personally criticize the Chrysler bondholders who weren't playing ball as he felt they should. Is that right?
Yeah, they're bankrupt. Because at that point, the American taxpayer is the investor. So if I'm the investor, I'm going to get as good a deal as I want, and I'm going to crunch the bondholders. He'd be irresponsible if he didn't. Absolutely.
Was he right to use the language that he used, talking about speculation?
Oh, are you kidding me?
Isn't that a little Shylocky?
Oh, please. If I was Obama, I'd be a million times tougher on Wall Street and all these corporate CEOs that are not capitalists. They're corporatists. They're sucking all the money out of those corporations that are public corporations. They're not giving it back to the shareholders.
Isn't speculation part of the job of a financial system? Don't we want speculators?
But look, you made a great point about Canada. No, you made a great point about Canada earlier in the Tyson Hubbard.
Canada is the land of all virtue.
Right. Now, and what does Canada do with their very solid banking system, which is predictable, which the businesses know how? They regulate it, okay? They're the cops, and they say, you're not allowed to speculate this way, and it works. When we allow out-of-control speculation, what happens? Bubble, boom, bust, crash. It happens every time.
Jake, that's a great general point, but in the specific case of the Chrysler bondholders, these guys actually, they weren't an institution that had to be bailed out by the TARP. These were private investment funds which went in, bought Chrysler bonds because they thought it was going to be a good deal, and then they were beaten back by the president, who basically said, I am going to publicly attack you until you knuckle under to my terms.
Yeah, because if I was the investor at Chrysler, I'd do the same thing. I'd crunch them even harder.
Lee?
Here's the problem. If during bankruptcy, if you're a bondholder, you're supposed to get part of the assets during the bankruptcy. And what happened was that the unsecured creditors were basically given priority over the bondholders. And
now, the bondholders didn't get totally hosed, right?
But if you haven't,
they did okay, but they feel they might have done better in a bankruptcy.
Guess what the bondholders would have gotten if Obama didn't step in? Zero.
That's not what
Donut.
they think.
Bankrupt.
No, but you still get the assets.
They think they would have done better in a bankruptcy proceeding.
Okay, good luck to them. I don't think that would have been the case at all. And everybody else would have suffered. The workers, the Chrysler altogether, every other kind of
But at least one of the
investor.
reasons why you take less of a return is if you're secured and you think you're at least you're going to get the assets during a bankruptcy. The problem is when the Obama administration stepped in and said, we are going to change the rules after the game, then later on what happens is when you expect the economy to rebound.
All the rules are changed.
No.
All the rules are changed.
No, we have bankruptcy laws for a reason, so people know what the bankruptcy rules are. That way you can predict, if this company I invest in goes under, what am I going to get? If I'm unsecured, I get nothing. If I'm secured, I get at least something.
I love the Chrysler story. I think it's a really important one, but I think we should probably move on. I want to talk about the U.S.-China relationship. Jake, this really seems like a lightning rod right now for both Democrats and Republicans. Is Washington right to be beating up on China so much?
Yes. And
yes.
Okay, now here's the situation.
Glenn and Laura didn't think so.
Right. Now, look, I'm scared of trade wars. And I think China has a lot of leverage over us. So don't get me wrong. I don't want a trade war. I'm free trade overall.
We have leverage over them.
We do, because they've lent us so much. Yeah, they've lent us so much money that we're like, well, if we don't pay you, you're hosed. So we have leverage in that sense.
Do you think they say that in their negotiations? Tim Geithner says.
I wish he would.
Your host.
But the thing is, with China, if you don't get tough with them, they have all these quotas, taxes, tariffs, etc. They're incredibly protectionist, and they won't let their currency fluctuate. They break or violate all the rules. And if we say, hey, can you stop that? We're against free trade? No, we got to fight back.
Okay, we have to wrap up soon. So, Lee, a couple of sentences on China and the U.S.
One of the things that Walter E. Williams, the economist, brings up is if you're sitting in a boat with China and China shoots the hole in the boat, and your solution is what? To shoot your end of the boat? It doesn't make any sense to hurt yourself because you want to get back at China.
But you're doing unilateral disarmament. You're going to let them walk all over
I've
you.
heard the metaphor, but I don't know what the actual policy.
Well, the idea is that we can't really do much to move out of the global economy, regardless of what.
You could import tariffs on Chinese goods.
Right, and
surely that would be a concrete thing you could do.
Yes, and that's a big.
Is that a good idea or not?
Certainly not during a recession. I mean, we've seen stuff like this during.
So what should Washington's attitude to China be?
In reality, the politicians can't do very much. I mean, they of course they can.
No policy measures.
Absolutely not. Of course they can. The biggest difficulty, and this goes through the general idea that we brought up earlier, is when politicians kind of treat the economy like a child's chemistry set. Businesses can't predict what's going to happen.
Okay, we're coming to a close. I'm going to ask you 3 blitz questions for each of you, okay? Outlook for the U.S. economy.
Disastrous.
Disaster. Okay.
I actually agree. If politicians aren't going to make it clear what they're going to do, no one can predict what's going to happen.
That's not why.
What's going to happen in the midterms?
Republicans will obviously win, but
how much?
It's tough. They definitely won't win the House, Senate. I mean, the House is 50-50 on whether they'll win. They'll pick up a lot of seats. The problem for the Republicans is the country doesn't like them. They don't like the Democrats, but they hate the Republicans more.
I actually agree with the outcome. I mean, if you just look at the polls, it looks like Republicans are likely going to take the House. Probably not the Senate, but it looks like they'll pick up quite a few seats.
Okay, and I lied. I have 2 more blitz questions. Does government work right now in the United States?
Unfortunately, it doesn't actually, because the money gets sucked out by all the people who bought the politicians, whether it's Wall Street or any other special interest.
Lee?
No, if you promise private companies that they can't fail no matter what they do by bailing them out, expect bad decisions. So it doesn't work.
Okay, and final one. Should Barack Obama invite Laura Tyson back to Washington?
She was just in here. I feel bad, but saying so. But I'd go much stronger. I'd go Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel Prize winner, someone who actually believes in real change.
The mentality that we can invite really intelligent people into government to fix our problems is not the solution.
Better to have stupid people?
It's better to decentralize the power in government and let individuals decide through the free market to get out of this recession.
Okay.
We tried that. That didn't
very
work.
much, and I look forward to following the discussion on your video blogs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Christy Freeland. This is Reuters.
I think I understand what you're like. It's more obviously
Yeah,
unhinged on
maybe
the
it's
obvious.
just more pronounced now. You know?
Yes, and you've moved on.
He used to be a lot more relaxed. He used to be less of an arse, and I guess that now he's pretty deep in his positions, and I think it's more about protecting the narrative than it is really being correct now. Because back, you know, a few years ago, he used to actually care about the facts, but now it's about not all.
Yeah.
Of course, right? Oh, Jesus, Cenk, shut up. You know, just shut up.
Listen, no. Listen, okay, right? That's what it is. You don't even talk. Just do the research. We're not going to put it up. It'll be up later because we're trying to have a conversation. We have a bunch of people who wanted to make phone calls to the show because we wanted to have a discussion. So let's have the first caller.
Hi, Cenk. Paul Joseph Watson here, first-time caller. I'd really like to get your clarification on the Armenian genocide, specifically if you accept the historical fact that it happened.
Okay, all right, I understand, because that's bullshit! Get the f*** off the phone! That's racist! You're racist! Get the f*** out! Get the f*** out!
I don't know why you're yelling. It's a simple...
Get the f*** out! Get off the phone!
Get the f*** off the stage, you blue-eyed limey f***! Shut up, bitch!
Whoa. Okay, we're trying to have a reasonable discussion! Fuck you!
Hi, Cenk. I'm not sure if you remember me. I was on your show a while back, and you asked me, demanded that I make you a ham sandwich, and I was just kind of wondering if you still wanted that sandwich. I could probably put it in the mail for you.
What? Okay, Karen, everybody knows I said that as a joke. Okay, and you didn't fucking make me a ham sandwich! That's bullshit! That's bullshit! Get the f*** off the phone! Get the f*** off the phone!
Get off the phone, you anti-woman, poor sandwich-making fuck!
Get off!
I'm a feminist. I'm the real feminist, bitch!
Okay,
Bitch!
no, listen. If you want to have a reasonable discussion, okay, but now they're going to come on and talk about the ham sandwich.
I guess that answers my question. So no, right?
Let's go. Yeah, let's go to the next call.
Hey, Cenk, as someone you've previously misquoted and borderline slandered on your show, I'm wondering if you can speak to the research and fact-checking behind your show.
Okay, listen, I understand this. This is what he wants to do with the, you made a mistake, because everyone makes mistakes. Okay, but your mistake was being born! Your mom's bullshit! Your mom's bullshit! Get the f*** off the phone! Get the f*** off the phone!
Get the f*** off the phone, you YouTube beta male.
Okay, no, okay.
You
We want to have discussion, right? Discussion. We want to talk about issues, not talk about this bullshit.
I said fuck. So he knows I'm in deep.
I know, it's predictable, right? Let's go to the next caller.
Hi, this is Ben Shapiro, and I was just wondering, your production values are fabulous, and I was wondering where you got your money. Was it from Soros, or was it from anti-freedom nations in the Middle East like Qatar?
Look it, right? Shapiro's thing is all the time to take these things and make them, oh, it was true, but now it's not true. So fuck you! Fuck you! You get paid by all the, fuck you and big money!
Get the fuck off the phone, you Jewish shekel collecting.
Whoa.
My money, fuck your money! We're trying to have a discussion, you want to talk about money! All you Republicans, you want to talk about money! It's bullshit! It's bullshit!
Cenk, you're bothered. You're low on energy. Okay, let's get time for a bacon grease break.
I don't need bacon grease.
Okay, come on, get your bacon grease.
No, I don't need, okay, maybe a little bacon grease.
Get your bacon grease.
All right, okay.
Oh, num bacon grease. Yes. Okay.
I love bacon grease. I love the bacon grease. It's reasonable.
Num bacon grease.
Okay, that's good.
That's it.
Hey, Cenk, Dean Cain here. I haven't called before. I've heard about your show and stuff, so I wanted to ask you a question.
No, I said get him off the phone, okay? That's not reasonable.
Wait, I can't even get off the phone, you Clark Kent, Superman, 90s sitcom, pretty boy fuck.
What?
Call me.
What?
Okay, all right, I mean, it's not just me, you know? Like, okay, everyone sees it, right? They'll watch and they'll be the judge. Let's go to one more.
Hey, Cenk, Dave Rubin here, former employee. So I noticed that you talk about Sam Harris a lot. You really obsess over the guy. So my question to you is, are you sexually attracted to Sam Harris?
Okay, very funny, right? We all get it. Dave Rubin used to be a part of the Young Turks. Oh, he's gone. Listen, I like the guy. Okay, I like Rubin. He left the show, okay, and that was bullshit! You left us! You broke my heart!
Get the f off the phone! You are my favorite faggot! Fuck you! Fuck you! We're trying to have reasonable discussions! And you come in here!
Yeah, get off the phone, you homophobic, joker-looking
Get the f off the phone! Okay, listen. You don't have to subscribe to this channel, okay? But if you want to have reasonable discussions, you should subscribe if you want to learn something and use facts and not just be racist and homophobic. By the way, the Armenian genocide, like, right, never happened, okay? Subscribe.
Yeah, but they didn't used to be so bad, and now they've been getting worse to the point where Alex Jones can go and troll them. And
Point them out.
They're right here to the left. There's chinks.
Where at? Right there, I'm gonna come sit in your lap. How's it going, man? Good to see you, man. You're looking sexy. Hey, how's the revolution going? You guys start the revolution?
We are indeed, Alex. The revolution is afoot. Welcome to the Young Turks.
You know what's wrong with America tonight?
I am going to restore American democracy along with progressives and conservatives in this country.
All right, well, I gotta tell you, I am really, really proud to be here with you. It's good to meet you in person. How are you guys doing?
We're doing okay.
You like all our Hillary for President shirts everywhere?
No, I kind of despise it.
What shirt is the best thing for you? You haven't seen, oh my God, you didn't see me? I don't exist, you didn't see me.
It's Alex Jones! Oh my God!
Hey! For you right here.
It's Alex
rape.
Jones!
It's Bill Clinton that says rape.
Alex
Oh God, I gotta that's the big no-no. The Robert Stone's thing.
You want to take my show over? I'll take your show.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, you know what? Who does this kind of shirt? First of all, sick guy. Second of all,
Bill Clinton's not a rapist, folks.
You know who's accused in
Get
court
it, Stone, come on.
You know who's accused in court papers of being a rapist?
John Doe.
By Donald Trump, Roger Stone.
He's in court papers. Oh,
You're
yeah.
a sick dude, Roger
Stone. I want to run off with you right now.
You assault me all the time. You never give me a chance to respond.
I should give you a job. You're a sick man, Roger Stone.
You're a liar.
Roger,
No, you're the world's biggest liar.
Get him in there.
Didn't you admit that you lied? Didn't you already admit that?
No, Elliot Spitzer, he's a great guy.
Alex, this ain't my fucking show.
Take it.
It's totally at your fucking show.
Are you afraid to debate him?
No,
You're afraid of the rape
Bring it back up.
Hey,
bring it back up right now.
Bullshit.
All right.
Roger, yeah, run away.
Roger, don't go. He wants to debate you right now.
I'm not going to debate this guy. You're a hatchet man. I don't know why anyone in the media takes you seriously. All you do is lie. You're known as the biggest liar in media. You're the biggest liar in media.
Tim the lie, loser. There's nobody watching your show, dude.
Guys, can you get out of my set, please?
Don't get too mad. We gotta
go.
All right, well, Crystal.
He's actually mad. He's actually really upset.
Sorry, can you get out?
Hey, don't touch my camera.
You want fucking attention. Get off the stage, you fat fuck. Get off. Yeah, you do.
Don't touch my camera.
Get the fuck off the stage.
Saudi Arabians aren't funny enough. You don't see
Hey, first of all, let me explain something, all right?
No, Jake, relax.
Hold on. We're against Saudi Arabia, you dumbass! We talk about that all the time!
Oh, really?
We talk about that all the time!
Get off the
You don't know
wall.
shit! What do you think, the lizard people are in charge?
No.
Is that what you think?
Now you're pissed.
Bilderberg?
We're kicking your ass.
Is that what you think?
You're the anti-liberal and you're pissed.
Bullshit!
We're being nice here.
You know what I care about? I care about the American people!
Good. You're the one flipping out. Anybody hurt? I'm being nice. I'm not lying.
Everybody get the fuck off my stage! Get the fuck off my stage!
Unbelievable. You're the one that got it. Hey, Alex, security's here. I got it. All right, go. That is the craziest shit I've ever seen. They just shut the fuck up, you loser. All right, go. I'm not gonna go. He attacked me. There's space, guys. There's space.
Unless you stop, keep moving. Okay.
Please get on my stage. Get on us.
We don't need this, y'all.
Well done. Next stage's over. Next stage's over.
Take him out.
That was crazy. It's over and it's set
Wait, no, when it isn't. Remember, like the Young Turks wanted to talk to us, and they called us over and they like attacked us. That was weird. They invited us over and then attacked us. What was that like? Huh?
That was pretty awesome.
All right, be here.
Hey, I'm rolling mentions if you want to say something.
No, we're just here. I hear the Young Turks want to interview us by one of their people. They bring us over. They say, jump up on stage with him, some guy. And then I get up there and they like spit in my face and attack me. And they're like trying to say we did something wrong. It's crazy.
Y'all cannot come back. Excuse me.
All right, here we go. Where are you going next? Dude, that guy attacked me.
Just now?
Yeah, he attacked me.
Well, then let's go back and kick the shit out of him.
Yeah. Anyway, you ready?
All right, look at this.
No, they spit on us.
Oh, they spit on you. All right, we've got Alex Jones from the
over here, brother.
And what's the guy's name?
They fall for it.
Yes, the Young Turks make Alex Jones into a sympathetic figure. Though it wasn't Alex Jones, it was more so Roger Stone that seemed to bother them for some. It seems like
who
there's
is
some.
Roger Stone? I don't really know who that is.
He worked with the Trump campaign, right, Jared? And he doesn't, but they're
He used
friends.
to work for Clinton, I think, way back when.
And then he worked with Trump.
Trump,
Then
he's his
not with
campaign
Trump.
manager or something, or strategist. Then
And
he was
he's-
fired, but still kind of.
He's some kind of
pretty cool
correspondent
buddies
for
with him.
Jones,
Yeah.
Alex Jones. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would definitely disagree with the idea that they used to be more fact-based, just because I've always disagreed with them and would always be, and I had friends who they would debate or attack, and I was going, well, no, that's not even true. That's not even what they said. But back then there were no channels to counter it. You know what I mean? It was like, it didn't matter. It's just like they said, well, you know, it could be something as, I don't know if they actually said this, but something like someone says Detroit's unemployment is 28%. That's not true. It's 11%. Look it up. And they would do that back then, and it just wasn't true. And I just don't think people were able to go like, is that not true? Whereas now we have
It's
people
been
like
a
you.
while since I've watched them as a fan, so I'd have to look. I'd have to look. But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to check.
Well, yeah,
but it just seemed they didn't seem so bad. But these days,
he wasn't as explosively angry.
This is from the CNN poll. We're not making this up. It's right from CNN.com. 43% of Americans still believe that Saddam Hussein was personally involved in the September 11th attacks on this country. 43%! Right now, in September of 2006, 5 years later. That is a stunning number. 43% of Americans are dead wrong on a fact, okay? You know what that means? That is a colossal failure on the part of the press. There is no excuse for it. No. There is no excuse.
Of course there is. The excuse is that the people themselves have to have a curiosity about this.
No, they don't.
Of course they do.
It is the job of the press to inform the American people, and they have failed utterly.
You would be hard-pressed to find, in the print press I'm talking about, a lack of discussion of this issue over the past 18 months in this country. It is inexcusable that the people do not take these... absolutely it is.
You know, your argument, Michael, I mean, I hate to do this, but it's so tired blaming the American people.
Have I blamed them always? No. Okay. But this fact, as you call it, has been put out there for American consumption now for over 18 months.
I'll agree with you that it has been all over the place, but I mean, it's been tucked and buried, and you really have to investigate. A story like this, a story that has literally changed the face of of our country that has had such an impact on the Middle East, why isn't it a bold-faced headline on the cover of Time, Newsweek, New York Times, Washington Post? Why is it?
It's been
why is it only buried in dense, articles that intellectuals read?
Between September 11th and today, do you know how many stories they've run on Jesus? About 88.
And they
Okay.
had Billy Graham on the cover
Okay,
the other
Billy
day.
Graham, Jesus, whatever. Religion. We love you, evangelicals. You know when Jesus died? 2,000 years ago. No, how many cover stories have they run on Saddam Hussein was not personally responsible for 9/11? Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. How many cover stories? Zero. Not one. Zero. Newsweek, none. Time, none. All these newspapers, these magazines, the television. Television. You turn on, when's the last time? Blaring headline. Saddam Hussein, nothing to do with 9/11. Saddam Hussein, nothing to do with 9/11. They don't do it. Why do you think these people have this mistaken assumption?
I know that this is a topic, though, that has been discussed, I think, in the last 18 months responsibly by the news media. And I think that it is something that we have come to. It got to the point, so much so, that the president was forced to say in a news conference that was the case.
But that's the thing. But that's the point that I was just going to bring up. The president even said it in a news conference why it didn't make front page news the next day.
Well, it did make front page news. You read the newspaper. That was a featured part in black in the New York Times of what he was said. President finally concedes. Was it a banner headline?
What page?
Page 1 on the front page above the fold.
Michael,
Absolutely. That's where I learned.
Story in USA Today. Bush says he's made America safe.
That's where I.
That's the headline.
Well, okay,
James,
you're talking about one
within
story.
the article are never goddamn mentioned in the goddamn headline.
All right, it's impossible to talk to you about
Because
something.
here, I'll show it to you.
Whoa! I mean, USA Today. You're not talking about USA Today. You're talking about one.
Show the goddamn paper right here, okay?
What does
USA
it say,
safer? Bush says. Picture. Headline, USA safer, Bush says.
Okay.
USA Today, you suck balls. You are a terrible newspaper. You know what he did in that press conference yesterday and how we covered it? He lied over and over about how this was a war between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. It's not a war between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. It's a war between Shiites and Sunnis. Civil war that we're stuck in. And what does the USA Today incompetent losers say? USA safer, Bush says. That is a lie. They've done a terrible job. Every one of these editors in every major newspaper, in every major magazine, in every major television news organization should be fired today. 43% of Americans believe that Saddam Hussein was personally involved with 9/11. That is the worst failure of the mainstream press I have ever seen. Ever seen. And why do you think now 58% of Americans are opposed to the Iraq war? Do you know what that number would be if 43% of them didn't think Saddam Hussein did 9/11? That number would be like 3%. God damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're goddamn wrong. Because you should be angry. Young Turks.
No. I would say they were just as inaccurate, but I think he's definitely. I've talked about this. This is entirely conjecture, okay? But if you see the eyes that are glassy, bloodshot, he's gained weight, sweating profusely, and very, very emotional and temperamental. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of an issue there that's more than meets the eye. Hey,
health issue,
substance issue.
Substance issue.
I'm just saying, I've as a comedian, I've been around it a lot, and like that's the thing is that your serotonin levels, and it's just like you're sitting there, it's like okay, and you just freak out. So I have noticed that for sure. He's much quicker to anger.
Well, I mean, I don't know anything about any substance issues, but honestly, I think it's about the environment he's in. He's in a very closed environment where everyone agrees with him, and then when you get like Ben Mankiewicz is his name,
he seems nice.
He's a lot more reasonable. He's like, no, Cenk, I disagree with you on this. I think you're wrong. Cenk will just shout him down.
Yes, he does. You're right. You're the only one who sees it. You're the only one. It's a gift. Okay. Nobody says that. Your characterization of what other people say when they don't agree with you is so massively flawed. It's a giant gaping weakness.
You're telling me he didn't say that Hillary Clinton was an overwhelming favorite?
No, nor did he raise his voice like that in print.
With Bernie Sanders.
And I think because you are so ready to see that, you see honest discussion as jack off, nothing.
It's just like, oh, Christ, man.
I can't watch him though either.
Who,
that
Ben?
Guy, Ben, no.
He's not particularly dynamic, but he seems like a decent person.
Decent person, but he comes off to me as a guy who, like, works at Home Depot in the afternoon. And the guy shows up. He's like, "Hey, met you at the potluck once. You got some thoughts?
Put you on the show.
Do you got a blazer?"
Apparently, he's a co-founder of the thing.
Really?
Oh, was behind the scenes? I don't know. I was just asking because I've noticed a lot of people saying that, like, coming on my channel. I'm sure you see, I used to be a Young Turks watcher, but insert story here. And sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, absolutely. I was just agreeing. I get dozens and dozens of people like that as well. I probably get a lot more than you do because I'm left wing, you know.